Alright, I'm Dr. Carroll and welcome to a review of classes and objects. Okay, so what is a class? A couple answers maybe hopefully come to mind. A class is a container of data members and function members. Okay, so data members and function members. It contains both of them. Hopefully you remember that members are public, private, or do you remember the third one? Protected or protected. You might not have come across protected before. If you have, that's okay. So what does public mean? Well, it means what it sounds like it means. It's who can access these public members, either data or methods. Well, anyone can. That's what the name, they carefully chose that name. Well, what about private? Well, private, as the name suggests, that only members of the class can access those data members or function members. But also, if you haven't learned about friends yet, friends of the class, then we'll talk about that later. And then the third category there is protected. Well, here we have only members and friends of the class and any derived classes. Now, if that doesn't sound familiar, it's from inheritance, and we'll cover it in a different video. So let's go to a simple example. Here, let me pull it up here. Make it so you can see it. Here's a class web page. Go to the chapter 1 folder, and here we have num.h. num.h.html. Just it looks better. If you're going to copy the file, copy this one using the URL, save it. If you want to view it, then do the .html one because it looks prettier. So here we have a very simple example. We have the keyword class. And that says, hey, I'm going to have a class and it's going to be named num in this example to capture a number. It's a convention to have an uppercase letter for the beginning of a class that you came up with. The one that you designed should be uppercase. Ones that come in a library are generally lowercase. You'll notice here we have a public section. Public meaning anybody can access it. So we have a constructor, we have an accessor, and we have a mutator in the public section. That means anybody can get at them. We have a private section of this class. So number can only be accessed by the constructor, the accessor, the mutator. And here's a little helpful reminder, don't forget the semicolon on the end. If you don't, then you'll get this funny compilation error after the line after the #include for the .h file. So here's just a simple example illustrating we're declaring a class num, and it has a private data member and some member functions. So if you want a more extensive example, for example, we could look at a checking account here. Here we're keyword class, we're defining a checking account. We have a public section, and if you'll notice, we actually have multiple public sections. You can write as many as your fingers can stand to write, although it gets a little confusing really if you have more than one. But for illustrative purposes, here shows that you can have multiple private, multiple public sections, and it'll work. So there's the declaration of the class. Now we have the implementation for the class here. Sorry, the background changed on you. And we need to use the #include so that the compiler knows where the declaration of the class is. And then here we have the scope resolution operator say, hey, this is the constructor for this class, or this function belongs to this class. It goes through and details all of them. So we have the declaration and the implementation, and then let's look at the driver code. Here we have the class name And we're saying, hey, we want an object and we're going to call it John. And these arguments are going to be passed to the constructor. Now we have the class name again here, and we want an object named David. Okay? Or alternatively, we could use the static method calls and assign them that way. There's three types of data members in a class that I want to review. One is called an instance variable. Okay, so for example, you might have int sum. Okay, it's just there, it's in the private data method, and each instance of the class has its own copy. Should be in private. In the private section there, should be in private, and it should be initialized in the constructor. Oh, in the constructor. Those are good rules of thumb. If you're going to deviate from those, you should probably have a good reason. So those are instance variables, meaning they're a variable that comes with an instance of the class. Okay, you can have a class variable. And back to our example here, to make an instance variable a class variable, you need static. Static meaning you have one copy for all of the instances of the classes. And they all share that one. It usually is initialized outside of the class in the CPP file, the implementation file. And then there's a third kind of variable I want to cover, and that's class constant. Okay, this is similar to the class variable, except it needs to be constant. We can't change it, so we need the const keyword. So this constant then is accessible by all instances, and it's again initialized outside the class in the implementation file.